The Middle East or West Asia has just moved into a dangerous new phase of conflict. As the nuclear negotiations with Tehran stalled in recent days, the United States and Israel on February 28 launched coordinated military strikes on Iran in broad daylight, triggering explosions across Tehran and multiple Iranian cities, shutting down airspace across the region and raising fears of a wider war. Here's what happened, how Washington and Tel Aviv are justifying the strike, and what this could mean for the region and the world.
Explosions were first reported shortly after 9:30 a.m. local time in Tehran. Smoke was seen rising over central parts of the capital, including near Jamhuri Square and Hasanabad Square. Strikes were also reported in several other cities, including Isfahan, Qom, Karaj, and Kermanshah. One of the areas targeted in Tehran was near the offices of Iran's supreme leader Ali Khamenei, who was later reported to have been removed to a secure location. Iran immediately closed its airspace following the attacks. Neighboring Iraq also shut its airspace as a precaution. In Israel, a nationwide state of emergency was declared. Israeli authorities closed the country's airspace, cancelled school and non-essential work activities, and warned citizens to avoid public gatherings.
צה"ל וצבא ארצות הברית יצאו לפעולה רחבה, משותפת ומתואמת, במטרה לפגוע משמעותית במשטר הטרור האיראני וביכולות שלו. המשטר מהווה איום קיומי ממשי על מדינת ישראל, על המזרח התיכון ועל העולם כולו.
US President Donald Trump confirmed American involvement in a video statement. He said the United States had begun what he described as major combat operations in Iran. According to Trump, the objective was to eliminate what he called imminent threats from the Iranian regime and to ensure that Iran does not obtain a nuclear weapon. He warned that there could be US casualties and stated that the strikes were aimed at destroying Iranian missile capabilities and weakening its naval forces.
The United States military began major combat operations in Iran. Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard, terrible people.
לפני שעה קלה יצאו ישראל וארצות הברית למערכה משותפת, מבצע שאגת הארי. מטרת המבצע, לשים קץ לאיום ממשטר האייתולות באיראן.
Trump also addressed members of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, urging them to lay down their arms and promising immunity if they complied. He said the alternative would be severe consequences. In a message directed at the Iranian public, he called on citizens to remain sheltered during the operation and suggested that they would have an opportunity to determine their country's future once military action concluded.
To the members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, the armed forces, and all of the police, I say tonight that you must lay down your weapons and have complete immunity, or in the alternative, face certain death.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu described the operation as necessary to remove what he called an existential threat. He stated that Iran must not be allowed to develop nuclear weapons and praised the joint coordination with the United States. Israeli officials said the campaign targeted military infrastructure, intelligence facilities, and symbols of the Iranian government. The operation was reportedly planned for months, with the launch date decided weeks ago, even while diplomatic negotiations were going on. The strikes follow weeks of rising tensions over Iran's nuclear program. Indirect talks between Washington and Tehran had taken place in Geneva, mediated by Oman, but it ended without a breakthrough. The United States had been pushing for strict limits on uranium enrichment, while Iran maintained that its program is for peaceful purposes. This is not the first time the two allies have targeted Iran's nuclear infrastructure. On June 22, 2025, during the Iran-Israel war, US forces carried out coordinated strikes on 3 Iranian nuclear facilities under the codename Operation Midnight Hammer. These were the Natanz nuclear facility, the underground Fordo fuel enrichment plant near Qom, and the Isfahan Nuclear Technology Center. The current escalation also brings renewed attention to the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow but critical waterway between Iran and Oman. Roughly 1/5 of the oil the world consumes passes through the strait. Any disruption there could have major global economic consequences. Last year, Iran had considered closing the strait following earlier US attacks on its nuclear facilities.
Onlar köpek gibi gelip harlayıp hürleyip gidecekler. Hiçbir şey yapamazlar İran'a. İran devleti, İran milleti hiçbir zaman eğilmez.
In retaliation to the joint US-Israel strikes, Iran reportedly fired ballistic missiles targeting Israel and countries like Bahrain, the UAE, Kuwait, and Qatar, where the US has military bases. Reports indicated massive explosions, including one in Dubai. In Abu Dhabi, several blasts were reported, while Qatari missile defenses intercepted a missile. Residents in Abu Dhabi confirmed hearing the explosions, and similar blasts were reported across Doha and Riyadh. As of now, the situation remains fluid. Airspace closures remain in place in both Iran and Israel. Missile exchanges and regional security alerts continue, and the international community is closely watching whether the conflict will expand further. The Israeli military recently stated that Iran responded by launching a barrage of missiles toward Israel. Explosions were heard in the city of Haifa, though it remains unclear how many were direct impacts versus interceptions.
This is a rapidly developing story with significant implications for regional stability, global energy markets, and international security. With missile exchanges underway, airspace closed across multiple countries, and global markets watching the Strait of Hormuz closely, the situation remains highly volatile. Whether the conflict remains contained or expands into a broader regional war will depend on the coming hours and days. We will continue to track every development.